Welcome back to another episode of Right Here in Mass. Joining me today is Jeff Gordon, who is the proud owner of Ideal Video Strategies, a video marketing agency, as well as Home Video Studio, which is located in MetroWest, and it's a business dedicated to preserving family memories by converting old media into digital formats. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm
It's
excited.
my pleasure. Yes, you have a very impressive and extensive bio that is in your show notes for our listeners to look through and get the whole spiel of everything that you're doing. But I'd love to start off by giving you the opportunity to just tell us more about yourself, what you're doing with these two companies, how you got to where you are today, all of that good stuff.
Well, that's a loaded question. Um, so, Idea Video Strategies has been going since 2018.
Mhm.
I started that really kind of out of necessity to looking for something else. I've been in video for a long time, but where I was, it just wasn't working out. So we ended up starting that one, and our mission is well, our key features are storytelling, right? So
Mhm.
our main products are interview-based videos, where we let the owners or leaders or whoever are higher up in the company really kind of tell their story and um, why people would want to work for them. And so that's kind of what we primarily do with that. So then there's Home Video Studio MetroWest, which we are just starting up this year. It's actually a nationwide company. We're licensing a branch here in MetroWest,
Mhm.
um, and that is going to be primarily preserving people's memories. Whether that's old VHS or old film, or even if they've already transferred to DVD. I mean, what can you watch DVD on now? So all sorts of things, and then we can also put those images together, some sort of memorial piece, legacy piece, anything to kind of capture or celebrate an event or anything like that. In a
Uh,
nutshell.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's wonderful that both businesses have an emphasis on video, but serving different audiences. So you have Ideal Video Strategies, of course, working with businesses and organizations, and then Home Video Studio Metro West focusing on individuals, families, I guess regular consumers, quote unquote, you'd call them. But I love
Right.
that you kind of hit both groups of people and you're able to serve them in that capacity.
Yeah, I mean that was kind of the goal. Like after I guess almost 7 years of Ideal, we have, really kind of discovered what we really like to do. And that's getting to know people, really getting to know people, engaging in what their business is, and then also just creating relationships. And originally when we started, we're like, we're just gonna work with businesses, but now, like, as time has gone on, ultimately the main goal is to just make a difference of somewhat in people's lives. I know we're not making like a huge difference, but we can help people like relive those memories and bring those old memories back to life and stuff like that. So
Hmm. Yeah, I love that. And I'm curious to hear what kind of led you into this like video career. Like, I'd love to hear if it's something you've always done or what inspired your journey with that.
you know, it's 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 not really glamorous. So I had gone to college right out of school because that's what you do, and right out of high school, I mean, with really no ambition to know what I wanted to do. So I didn't
Yeah.
finish the first time around. And then I was working in restaurants for a while. And then at the time I had some college buddies who had gotten me into pro wrestling. I'm not a fan anymore, but I was at the time. And so there was this piece, well, there was a wrestler who had passed away, and they had put together this tribute piece.
Mhm.
And for whatever reason, it really just kind of got to me. And I was
Yeah.
just like, just the way they put it together, the music, the images, the emotion. Um, and for whatever reason, it just clicked. It just clicked with me. And
Mhm.
so from there, that's kind of when I started exploring the video world. Started I started to volunteer at a public access station.
Mhm.
And then after doing that for a while, just decided to go back to school for video, and that's where it goes.
Yeah. And I know you mentioned too, you had had like a previous career in video before you decided it was kind of time to change things up and start your own thing. Is that right?
Yeah, I had worked for an educational company. So I went to New England Tech for college, and
Hmm.
I had landed a job right out of there. There had been a company that came down to them looking for somebody, and I happened to do well in the program, and so went for an interview and had the job before I was out of school, which is obviously like the dream, you know. And it
Yeah.
was a 9 to 5. It was a corporate gig. It was a 9 to 5. I had been doing restaurants nights and weekends for years, probably like 7 years or something. So I'm like, 9 to 5, like let's do it. You know,
Yeah.
benefits, salary. Oh God, yeah. You know. So we did that, and I was there for 12 years, and you know, it was good because I really got to hone in some skills there, do different styles of video, figure out what I really liked. You know, they ended up paying for a good portion of a master's degree.
Mhm.
Met some cool people, did some traveling, but ultimately it was after 12 years, it was kind of time to figure something else out.
Yeah. And so what was that process like of starting your own company? Did you feel prepared? Were you a little bit scared? Maybe a little bit of both?
I mean, it was a kind of a shoot from the hip type of deal. I had been not happy there for a while. I had been applying for other jobs, you know, some big corporations, and some I had got offered but didn't accept, some I didn't get in, but turns out there was 200 plus people applying for these jobs. And I'm like, oh my God, this is crazy. Like, so I don't know, just
Yeah.
contemplated the idea of starting the business and had support from my family and just kind of did it. You know, there wasn't really it was never a goal of mine to actually start a business.
Mhm.
Um, but you know, it just kind of happened, and you know, I love it. And I think the biggest thing is just the people that you meet, you know, and I
Absolutely.
had no idea when I started just how many small businesses there are. Um, None. There's so many. I had no idea. There was so many different small businesses doing all sorts of different stuff. And it kind of blew my mind because I don't know. I don't know how I didn't realize, but I didn't. So
Yeah.
that's probably
It,
my favorite.
yeah, and you are very involved in a business organization in Hudson. So I'd love to hear more about that. And I'm sure that's how you made many of those connections
It
of
is.
other local business owners and seeing what other people are up to.
Yeah, so Hudson Business Association was probably the first group that I joined. And it was just, you know, it was cool. What I really liked about it is because I got to know the town more. Like the town
Hmm.
departments came, the planning office came. You know, there's another group in town. They came, and so I really learned more about just what's going on in town. Being a resident, so that was helpful.
Yeah.
Um, and obviously, it took time to make the business connections because it does. Um, but then eventually, once COVID hit, they kind of were like, nobody wanted to run it, and I think I was still pretty new. And they're like, well, if nobody takes this over, then it's kind of gonna go away.
Mm.
So me and another business owner kind of took it over and you know rekindled it, I guess you could say. Kind of tried to change some of the atmosphere. So now it's we pride ourselves on being like a real welcoming group. Any business, you know, you don't have to have a storefront. You don't, you know, you can work from your home. Any type of business whatsoever. More than welcome to join it. And we're Hudson centric, but we're not exclusive. So you're more than welcome to come if you are in Marlboro or wherever. You know, and ultimately the goal is just like any networking thing is to build relationships and, you know, hopefully work together, keep the work relatively local if you can.
Hmm. Absolutely. And I love that you mentioned that you're not exclusive of any type of business and people don't need to necessarily have a physical storefront because there are what I've seen in many towns and cities like the Main Street associations
Yeah.
where any of those businesses on Main Street can be a part of it, but then it leaves the other business owners who, like you said, work from home or something else kind of out of it. And so I love just that emphasis on including everyone, being able to provide support and help people build connections.
Yeah, and you know, and I think you know that's one of the great things about Hudson, and this kind of started before I was around, is that
Mhm.
a lot of the business owners and companies and town organizations, everybody works pretty well together, and for the ultimate goal of the success of the town. So that, you know, was just something we were tapping into.
Mhm.
It did already kind of exist, but we just kind of wanted to keep it going.
Yeah, definitely. And from what I've seen online, Hudson has been doing a ton of revitalization throughout the past few years, like really building up, getting a lot of great businesses in. And I think that is really cool to see and for you to be a part of, just being able to see it all happen.
It is. So we moved in. in 2011, and that was so our realtor kind of hijacked us, and she's like, "I'm gonna take you to Hudson," because at the time my wife and I worked south on 495s, and we had moved up here because of my family, just to be a little closer.
Hmm.
And she's like, "I'm gonna take you to Hudson. I'm gonna take you to Hudson," and I'm like, "No, I don't want to go to Hudson," because I grew up only like 20 minutes away, and I just Hudson had a bad rap. And we ended up moving in. And then in 2012, that's when a couple of the one of the major businesses came in, Rail Trail Flatbread Company, and then from there, Medusa came in, brewing company,
Hmm.
and then it just completely 180'd. I mean, there was nothing downtown in 2011. Like Salvation Army was kind of the flagship store and a couple restaurants, but it was really kind of a ghost town.
Yeah.
Um, and then just over the couple of years, it 180'd, and that was even before I was a business owner, and who would have known, but we're thankful that it's happened, and the town is thankful that it's happened, and it's been fun.
Yeah, I love that. And of course, you contribute to it in many ways, not only being a part of the organization that helps to bring all these business owners together, but also now being a business owner of two businesses. And I think it's so funny that you mentioned you never saw yourself starting a business and now you have two. Like you must think about that and be like, wait a second.
I would agree. I would agree. And there's times where I'm like, man, I should just go back to the corporate world because, running a business is challenging.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's what you create. It's,
Hmm.
your own schedule, and I've got kids, and I want to be there for the kids and coach the sports and go to the
Yeah.
events, and um maybe that limits a little bit of the revenue that I could bring in, but that's okay for
Hmm.
now. It's more important to be there, in my opinion, for them and not miss the stuff. I don't look back later and be like, oh, I should have went to more games,
Yeah.
stuff like
Yeah.
that. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, I do. I don't really know how it kind of came to be, and I can't believe it's already been almost 7 years now. But it is a lot of fun, and I just, like I said, I really enjoy just connecting and meeting all the different people that do the different things, and because you just never know when you're going to need somebody, or just meet somebody and learn about a fascinating story.
Yes, seriously. I mean, there's so many cool people out there, cool places, and I think that's one of the, I think, most gratifying things about being a business owner is just meeting people that you maybe would have never met otherwise. Like if you hadn't had a business, like you may have never crossed paths with them anyway. So it's very cool to kind of think about that.
No, for sure. Yeah, there's so many people I mean, I was thinking about this the other day. LinkedIn, I'm up over, I don't know how many connections I am now, but when I started a business, I had like 100 connections,
Hmm.
but then obviously you use LinkedIn to build those relationships, and now that's like, I don't know, over 1,000 and stuff. And it's like that's really just because of owning your business and networking. And some of my good friends now are other business owners, or work for somebody who we've networked with. And
Hmm.
and it's kind of like being the person to be like, oh, hey, I know somebody's looking for something. I know somebody that can help you with that. Like I got a lot of people like, hey, you must know somebody,
Yeah.
I just had one from LinkedIn, somebody I haven't talked to in a while. Hey, you're active in Hudson. You must know who's involved in this. And it's like, I do.
Pull out
So,
your digital Rolodex.
yep, yep.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the best feelings too, when like someone views you as someone who knows people, has connections, and can be a resource for them, and that they turn to you to ask for stuff like that or people or connections like that.
Yeah, and it's kind of like a what goes around comes around type of thing.
Yes.
Give out somebody else's name. Hopefully that comes back to you, whether it's now or whether it's 2 years.
Hmm.
Hey, I got this person for you now, and it's like great. And I don't go in. I think it's a mistake for people to go into groups expecting that they're just gonna get like referrals and that's just like that. Like, I mean, networking is a job. You got to put in the
Yeah.
work.
It
You
really
have to
is.
you have to put in the work, and eventually it comes around. So, that's why I think opening this second stream of business is I'm kind of a little bit ahead of the game.
Hmm.
So I was just at a training for this past weekend for the company, and it was an advanced training. So there was probably like 30 other studio owners across the country that were there, and some that were just starting.
Hmm.
And but they're coming from no business background, like they're starting from scratch, where at least
Mm.
where I have a video background, a storytelling background, I have the equipment, and then, well, not all the equipment, I gotta get the transfer equipment and stuff, but I have a network, I
Hmm.
have the network already that I can hopefully tap into and be like, hey, guys,
Yeah.
I'm now offering this. Need it? Where I think with I do look back now and it's like, man, it was hard to start when you first starting out and don't know anybody. Um, so I'm very positive thinking about the new endeavor just because I've already got all that foundation built.
Yes, and I think that's a great way to put it. And I also think one thing that's really interesting about your businesses is that you kind of have like the best of both worlds. So you have Ideal Video Strategies, which you started just as like a sole proprietor, but then you also have, I guess it sounds like Home Video Studios like a franchise. Is that right?
I mean, technically, I'm just licensed, not technically a franchise. I'm licensing
Gotcha.
to use their materials, but yes, in
Yeah.
essence.
So I think it's so interesting how you have both business models, so to say, and I'm curious to hear if there was a reason why you went that route of purchasing a license from them instead of just having, I guess, full ownership, if that's the best way to put it.
So, I know I am the business owner, and they
Hmm.
have guidelines that they would like you to follow, but you don't have to. Um,
Mm.
Now, one of the reasons I decided to go with them was just the knowledge that they already have,
Yeah.
and the gentleman who started it, Robert, he's been doing it since 1994, I think. So this is their 30-year anniversary. So um, he's just knows. He knows all the different. I mean, there's so many different types of media out there, old media, so many different types, and he knows everything.
Hmm.
So and then all the other studio owners that most of them that I just met this weekend, a lot of them have been doing it for 15, 20 years. Some have just been a couple years, but there's just so much knowledge out there, and it really does feel like a team,
Hmm.
which I do kind of miss with Ideal Video, because Ideal Video is
Yeah.
real, it's just me and some and contractors who I trust, and I've got my network and stuff, but this one is really kind of like a team,
Hmm.
so it's kind of cool to go that route. It's almost getting back into the corporate world, but not really, you know. So that ultimately, and just all the equipment that's needed, and they already know what works. I would have had to spend hours and hours and hours trying to figure out what equipment worked, what I needed to
Yeah.
get, um, where this this team already they know. So
Hmm.
sure, there's an upfront cost to that, but and then an annual cost to it, but I think it's worth it.
Absolutely. And like you said, I mean, it's purchasing the license. So you do have those guidelines, but you do have what it sounds like a good authority on control of what you do and whatnot. And I think it's wonderful that, like you said, you're surrounded by like-minded people that you can ask questions to or get advice from, or just have a group of people who get it, so to say, with the
Right.
other licensees and have that camaraderie, which, like you said, you don't always get as a solo business owner.
No, sometimes it's a struggle.
Yeah.
So I've definitely built up there's other people that do exactly what I do. I've built
Hmm.
up some relationships with them. Through the Housing Business Association, I've made some strong relationships with other people that are business owners. But you still have to find a way to surround yourself with people that you can trust. And people that you like,
Yeah.
obviously, that's
Seriously.
really, what the world is kind of about, surround yourself with the people that are going to lift you up and all that kind of, cliche kind of stuff.
Yes.
Um, but I lost my train of thought because I went off on a tangent there. But yeah, but it is really nice to have. I mean, all those people that like I only met a couple of them there this weekend, and everybody was just so welcoming and so willing to just be like, "Hey, call me if you need something," and that kind of stuff. And I can already contribute based on my experience and knowledge because there is some people that only do the transfers and don't do the video
Mm.
side. So, um, I'm always there to help as well. So it's kind of a good fit.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And so, as of the time of this recording, we're at the beginning of March, and it's the perfect time because, like you mentioned, you just launched this new venture, home video studio. And of course, you have Ideal Video Strategies. But as we're still kind of in the beginning of the new year, I'd love to hear what your plans are for the next year for both businesses. If there's anything exciting coming up or cool projects that you're working on, feel free to shout them out.
Well, so technically, home video isn't really launching until May 1. So we're just starting to get the word out there, but we're not fully installed with all the equipment yet. We
Mhm.
could try to start to take orders and stuff, but we wouldn't be really getting to those until the 1st of May. But plans for that, I mean, obviously the plans for that is just to build it, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and the plans for Ideal are to keep doing what we do. Um, I've got a list of repeat clients that I still plan to work with. Um, Obviously, trying to get new ones, and most of my business from Ideal comes from networking.
Hmm.
Um, I don't do much advertising when it comes to that. However, on the flip side, home video is going to be a lot of advertising and targeting the general public, which I'm not
Yeah.
used to doing. So I've got a lot of learning to do when it comes to that. But it'll be interesting to see kind of what works and what doesn't. And I don't want to say that I mean, we do have a plan of how we're going to release stuff, but obviously you never know what's going to work and what doesn't. And so the plan is just to get through the first 6 months with getting some new business and then leaning on what's working.
Yes, definitely. And I'm always so inspired by seeing other people like yourself who have the two businesses because personally when I started Massachusetts Business Network after starting Dash of Social, I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's like so much harder to start a business the second time around than it is the first time." And it's like just going through the process again, it makes you realize and remember everything that you went through that first time.
Well, yeah, I mean everything's a learning experience and it's a matter of time, really.
Yeah.
Like how much time do you have? What can you do to save yourself time?
Hmm.
Um, so the future would be right. So we're going to be out of my house for now. You
Hmm.
the future would be to have a store on Main Street, you know, um, where people can just kind of come in. There's another third idea going on,
Ooh.
where I don't want to be preemptive, but my son is really getting into trading cards, sports cards.
Hmm.
So, if we can really get into that, buying and selling and that kind of stuff, memorabilia, I don't know that we will, but it's an
Yeah.
idea. To open a store that does the video transfers, has a card section,
Yeah.
that kind of thing would be kind of cool.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
now again, I went off on a tangent there and forgot what the original question was.
That's all good. I think it's very cool that you're very multi-passionate. I mean, between the two businesses, between what you're doing with Hudson businesses, it's very cool. And it makes me wonder, like, how do you balance your time between it all? Like, you have so many different things that you feel excited about, and I'm so curious to hear how you make time for it all.
I mean, sure, some stuff drops every once in a while. Like, so, a lot of the times the networking will drop off a little bit
Yeah.
once you get busy. And that tends to be the one thing that goes away.
Hmm.
One of the goals with home video is to, ideal can be like up and down, up and down,
Hmm.
up and down. Home video, the intention is to fill those gaps.
Hmm.
Um, I guess going back to the plans, I do want to try to hire somebody, whether that's contractor based or whether that's, part time, to really kind of work on editing for me,
Hmm.
because that it takes up a lot of time.
Yeah.
Um, that would be a goal, and then maybe hiring more people in the future. See what happens. See where it
Yeah.
goes.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, speaking of what you mentioned about building more partnerships and whatnot, I'm sure this is something you already thought of, but just thinking, or something that came to mind for me is like being able to build relationships with estate planning attorneys and perhaps funeral homes, because you mentioned like the legacy stuff. And I think
Yeah.
finding other people like that who share a similar clientele or customer base as you. I think that'd be so cool to form partnerships in some sense and hope to be able to really provide more of your solutions to the area that you're doing with home video studio.
Yeah, I did have a planning session yesterday with somebody I'm working with on all that stuff, and so we have this list of
Nice.
referral partners and kind of all that
Yes.
stuff. And I'm just like, it was a great session, but I'm like, I am so overwhelmed right now.
That's the
But
hard part about being a business owner is that like you get all these great ideas and it's like analysis paralysis. Or like, I don't even know where to begin now because I just want
yeah,
to do all of them.
and that's kind of how I was this morning. Like, because that meeting went up till about 4:30 yesterday, so I didn't really do much after that. And this morning, I'm just like, what do I start? So I ended up being like, okay, here's my priority list. Do this, do this, do this, do this. And
Yes.
then, you know,
Yeah.
yeah, it's overwhelming. And I will say Ideal's probably hurting a little bit when it comes to the prospects, the immediate prospects. Just because I have been spending a lot of time doing this. So when it comes, I don't know where the time comes from. Like the
Hmm.
time, it just kind of goes, it is what it is,
Yeah.
I guess as long as you're making enough money to survive with um, hopefully intentions for the future, then that's kind of how I'm looking at it this right now. It's like, okay, we might struggle for a little bit getting the second thing up and running, but there's a lot of potential there.
Hmm.
There's a lot of backing. There's a lot of planning. Um, and hopefully it will work out.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to phrase it. I mean, just having that positive outcome of like knowing that businesses have seasons, so like the ebbs and flows, and knowing that kind of maybe hitting a lower point at one point of the year is preparing you for that big high point that's coming. So, of course, it's easier said than done to think about that, and it's hard to be in the trenches, but when it comes, you'll probably have that moment where you're like, this is why I did this. Now it's all making sense.
Yeah. And, it will take a little while, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But, um, ultimately the goal is to just be happy and hopefully set yourself up for the future. I mean, it's funny because my kids are like, I'm like, hey, you guys could like work for me. You guys can do some of this transfer stuff. You guys could do that once I show you how. And they're like, really? Like, because they don't really do anything else for me for Ideal, just because it's
Yeah.
more, you know, in depth. Where,
Hmm.
some of the transferring stuff. I'm not saying it's like super easy, but it's more teachable and it's more of a process than the editing, which is much more creative and you really have to know the editing programs and all that kind of stuff. And so they're kind of excited about doing that
Yeah. Yeah, that's a lot of fun.
as they
Bringing
grow.
the kids and really have it be like a family business
Yeah.
and instill those interests in them. I love that. One thing I'm curious to hear is that because it made me think of this question. I'm curious to hear for anyone who's listening to this episode and may potentially be interested in getting into a career involving video or videography or memory preserving as you've shared. What advice would you have to give to them for just getting started?
I mean, start with start with the networking.
Yeah.
Or start, I mean, if you're not into video and you're interested in getting a video, start with your public access stations. Like they're always looking for help and they're
Hmm.
always teaching. So, that's a non-financial commitment that you can really see if you like it. That's kind of what I did, and I did that for a long time. Um, Otherwise, just reach out to companies. Like every once in a while, I'll have like some younger kids reach out to me and be like, "Hey, do you have any intern possibilities?" And currently I don't really have that, but I would like to at some point.
Hmm.
Um, but there are bigger companies out there that do offer those kind of scenarios. Then there's, I know nobody likes to do it, but there's the, hey, you can volunteer your time to shoot a town event or something like that, and edit it kind of the way you would like to, and then release it and use it as a demo and that kind of thing.
Hmm.
Um, it's I don't know that there's one direct absolute way to go. I mean, really, it's just kind of putting yourself out there and cold, not I don't not cold calling, but like reaching out. A lot of business owners are very willing to talk,
Hmm.
to kind of share any knowledge or experiences that they might have had.
Yeah.
Um, So I'd say, get out of your shell. You got to get out of your comfort zone a little bit. And, if you do go to this is what I always tell people. If you're new and you go to an event, you have to actually talk to people. Like you
Yes.
can't just like hide yourself in a corner over there, and
Or stick to the one
expect people.
person you know.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's like you have to be able to get out of your comfort zone. And it took me a long time to do that. I'm much more of an extrovert now than I used to be. Even when I started the business, like I wasn't much of an extrovert. I was always kind of introverted, but I haven't really had a choice but to kind of change that.
Hmm.
But yeah, just you got to kind of be willing to put yourself out there, and somebody eventually will, you know, throw you a line.
Yes, great advice. And now this next question may be a tough one for you to narrow down, but knowing how many businesses you know and support in Hudson, I'm curious to hear what your favorite local businesses are to support. I know you mentioned Rail Trail, and it's so funny because I feel like anyone that I've had in the Metro West gives a shout out to Rail Trail, and so I love that it's such a popular place. But I'm curious to hear what other places you love to go to and frequent and all of that stuff.
I'm going to resist my favorite. I don't want to like, so there's preferences, right?
Yeah.
Atmospheres. So I always go to for coffee. I tend to always meet at Cafe 641 in Hudson. It's right on Main Street. Oh, the owner's a good guy. I love the atmosphere there, and I feel comfortable there. So
Hmm.
that's probably where I would go for coffee.
Hmm.
Um, I do always like to try to check out the new businesses. Um, Obviously, it's somewhat. I mean, Hudson Business Association is volunteer, so it's not my job, but I
Yeah.
should. You know. Um, so just trying to go check out the new businesses. And there's a new owner of a framing store in town. So, we met and he's telling me all his plans and I'm like, oh, that's cool. Just like, so I wouldn't say that I really have a favorite, um, but I have my preferences.
Yeah, good to know. Jeff, this has been a really interesting episode, and I've loved having you on the show to talk about both of your businesses that you have, and especially Home Video Studio since that's launching May 1st. And I would love to give you the opportunity to have you share with our listeners where they can find you online in case they'd like to reach out.
Sure, well, I greatly appreciate it. Like I said, well, I said before, I think before we started shooting, I'm usually behind the camera. I'm not usually the one like in front of the camera. So it is a little weird, even though I'm like doing it myself, it is still a little weird. Um, but you can find idealvideostrategies.com is the best place to go to get in touch with me through there. Home Video Studio slash MetroWest will be the home video studio website. You can always find me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to connect about anything. Doesn't have to be business related, of course. Would love it. But if you have anybody that is looking to revive their old media, any big anniversaries coming up for some grandparents or parents or anything, we're happy to help put something together that's memorable and put a smile on everybody's face.
Amazing. And I will link to those places in the show notes that our listeners can click through and connect with you from there. But thank you so much again for coming on today's show.
All right, thanks, Ashley.